You're good, Bishop. We're so fortunate to have you in our community, and what a blessing to get to know each other and to be inspired by your words. Thank you. We'd like to take a few minutes to, if there are questions from the community for Bishop McElroy. You're all speechless? It's hard to see this many religious leaders speechless. That's amazing. This might be an eschatological moment.
I'm Sister J, a medical mission sister.
Probably if you stand up. Here, I'll give you this.
It's good to stand up. See y'all. Bishop, I'm not so familiar with this concept of accompaniment, so could you just say a few more words about that? Because that sort of brings everything together.
Accompaniment is actually, in the Catholic tradition going way back, a principle of spiritual union. All right. It is deeply spiritual in nature, and it means, in a sense, it's usually in spiritual conversation or spiritual direction, really walking with the person in the depths of their being, helping them understand the encounter with God, and in turn, understanding that they can help you encounter God. Okay? So that's within the Catholic tradition what it means. It has a deep reverence for the differences that exist in you, and a deep understanding that we can't label, we can't exclude, we can't draw divisions, because that is not the way of God. So in the Catholic tradition, that's the horror. But I think that's the kind of union we're called to have with one another. It's a bonding that's spiritual, and so it's not task-oriented principally. It's not even intellectually oriented principally. It is at the level of souls bonding together in a common effort to know who are we called to be individually and as communities of faith, and as the wider community of all faiths here in this world. So is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, yes.
That are at times politics gets in the way of moral decisions. There are issues that we're faced every day in this community of North County and also in South County, and that is the issue of immigration. We have in immigration a very divisive issue. People of good faith will arrive at certain decisions that might not be what would be a moral decision, but that's how it is. How do we change? How do we get into that transcendent level? That's my question.
Now, if I had the real answer to that question, I'd be on my way to Washington. but I do think there are ways of thinking about it, and that's this. Now, when I was pastor of a parish in San Mateo, which is about half hour south of San Francisco, for 15 years I was pastor of the same parish. So we had a workshop on immigration. Ours was an overwhelmingly Anglo parish. And the way we had this workshop was people told their stories. Okay, and I think one of the great problems is our politics now is meant to obfuscate and frustrate consensus in many levels. There is it's to everyone's benefit. And I say this in Washington, having met with both groups, both parties on this question at the highest levels. And I always had in the back of my mind, coming out of every meeting, for its own reasons, each side likes this lack of a final solution that will be helpful. And that's where I think is the part of our politics we can't let happen. That's where it becomes immoral. Now, but in telling stories, I think people helping us. What happened in our parish on that was people were telling their stories, and it was helpful on both sides. There were people on both sides of this issue, and they were sharing. It was very helpful. And then one woman stood up. Now, I knew she was Mexican originally, but she had 8 kids. She'd been in the parish a long time. And I want to say this the right way. Nobody thought of her as Mexican. I mean, she was so involved in the life of the parish. Her husband wasn't Mexican. And so she stood up and said, and she was in her 60s, I came into this country illegally. Well, it was such a stunning moment to our mainstream parishioners, who all knew her, that it caused them to rethink the whole thing. And so, because it was jarring to them to think of her, whom they had such great respect for, as having done something they didn't have respect for. So I think there are ways of sharing stories that help us to do that and help reveal what is the human stake here. And that ultimately reveals the moral stake. But it's and then of course when we have a foundation of faith to build upon that in that period of revelation, it's enormously helpful, I think.
Bishop, so that we can be supporting you in prayer and kind of accompanying you, even though we might not be walking with you, what are some of the maybe 1, 2, or 3 most important things that you'll be doing in the next few months that are on your heart from your community standpoint that we can be praying with you about?
Well, I have been going to the various parishes, as Monsignor McLaws mentioned, isn't he? And so in each parish I meet with each of the priests individually, and then I meet with the parish staff, and then I meet with the lay leadership for discussions. And there have been a series of problems that have emerged in our community. Challenges. I mean, they're wonderful things of grace. There's immense faith. And to me, and I'm sure you find this in your communities in the same way, the overwhelming thing that people say when I ask particularly the leadership, will you describe your parish? What they say is, I feel spiritually at home here. It's a great, I'm sure you find that in your own communities. It's a great grace. To me, it's the best thing people could be saying about their church community. I feel spiritually at home here. The challenges we have, we don't have enough priests, which is a problem. A huge problem is that of young adults. Trying to engage young adults in the life of the church with the Catholic is very difficult. And I know it's wider than within the Catholic community. And so that's going to be a priority of ours moving forward. How do we find ways of reaching out to young adults and really bringing to them the sense of what God's presence could be in their lives and a sense of moral formation and help them to feel at home in the life of our faith community too. Another problem that I have to say, when I was appointed here, when I was growing up here, I grew up in San Francisco, but we used to come down here on vacation to San Diego, which was all because it's always such a beautiful place. And so we'd come every year, but that was many years ago. So I knew San Diego that way. And then when it was time for me to be appointed, I was an auxiliary bishop. That's an assistant bishop in San Francisco. And there comes a time you do that for a couple of years, and then usually you move to another diocese where you're the head bishop of the diocese in our system. So it was that time, And so, but there are different dioceses you can be moved to at any given moment. And so there's actually a website. I hate to say this. There are two websites that auxiliary bishops pay attention to. This is true. You go look it up. One is called Bishops Nearing Retirement Age, and the other is vacancy. This is true. Punch it in. You'll see. Not only does it have it, it has the name of the bishop, and it will say, we had to retire at 75, okay? And you really can't easily retire before that. You have to at that time. So it'll say like 74.32 years for the age. It does. It has it to decimal points. And then it'll have about the diocese. So there were various dioceses open. So one of them that was open at my time, I hope I went over to offending with it, was Fairbanks, okay? So, yeah, Fairbanks, Alaska, you got it. And there's a mean thing auxiliary bishops do with one another. You'll say, hey, I heard your name's going around for Fairbanks. They go, no. He said, I heard it, 3 or 4 people. Yeah, Fairbanks. You know? So anyway, you're in all this. So when I heard I was coming to San Diego, I was just delighted, just overwhelmed. And then I found it wonderful to be here. One of the things on the first day when it was announced I had a press conference that surprised me, there was a question asked about homelessness. And I answered it, fairly easy, but I did not realize the depth of the problem of homelessness here. And it surprised me. I have to say I came from San Francisco where there is a big homeless problem. And I knew that one, and I thought that was the case. I was surprised at the depth of the problem here in San Diego. And so that is a key one in our community. And one that invites us to work together. And so my hope is that as we, bond together in various ways, and all of you in this room have been doing this in this place longer than I, much longer than I, that we will eventually come together on all these different levels and build relationships on all these different levels that I was describing. Because I think that would be a wonderful interfaith community effort. To collaborate on these specific things like homelessness. And homelessness does melt the heart. I'll tell you what also melts the heart in homelessness, which ties in this community, among veterans. Homelessness among veterans is a terrible scourge. And that is something that can unify people. Across, when you were talking about, say, from CJ, how do you get to people? Sometimes there's a way we can frame issues that bridge those ideological divisions. Homelessness, particularly among the veterans, is one which does that. Virtually no one is unsympathetic to that. And so my hope and prayer is that I thank you for the offer of prayer, because that's a level of all of our interfaith action which needs to suffuse everything we do. So I thank you so much for that.